On Christmas Eve, I set the table for 5. My children sent a text saying, "Eat alone, old man." They thought I was just a retired engineer with a bad knee and a fading memory. They didn't know I own the bank that holds their mortgages. By sunrise, they weren't just uninvited, they were homeless. My name is Reggie King, and this is how I fired my own family. Before I tell you how I brought my empire down on their heads, please like and subscribe if you have ever been underestimated by the people you sacrificed everything for. And tell me in the comments, what is the worst holiday excuse you have ever heard? The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8 times. The sound vibrated through the floorboards of my Chicago brownstone, echoing like a funeral bell in an empty church. It was 8:00 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I sat at the head of a mahogany dining table long enough to land a small aircraft on. In front of me sat a feast that had cost more than my father made in a year of working at the steel mill. A 5-pound Wagyu beef roast sat in the center, cooling rapidly. The fat had begun to congeal, losing that glistening sheen that justified its obscene price tag. To my left, a bowl of truffle mashed potatoes. To my right, glazed carrots and collard greens prepared exactly the way my late wife Beatrice used to make them. And directly in front of my hand stood a bottle of Chateau Margaux, 1982. It was a $2,000 bottle of wine. I had bought it 10 years ago, saving it for a night when the whole family would be together under one roof, laughing and lying to each other about how well we were doing. The table was set for 5, fine china, crystal glasses, polished silver. But the only thing filling the chairs was silence, heavy, suffocating silence. I checked my watch. 8:05 p.m. Maybe the traffic on the I-90 was bad. It was snowing after all. A heavy Chicago winter storm was battering the windows. Maybe Marcus had trouble with the starter on his car, though I paid for that car so it should run perfectly. Maybe Nia was running late, closing up her boutique. Maybe Darius was just being Darius, losing track of time. I was lying to myself. I knew I was lying. I had been lying to myself for 5 years, ever since Beatrice passed. My arthritic knees throbbed. I had stood in the kitchen for 6 hours today. I had ignored the burning pain in my lower back to chop vegetables and season meat. I wanted this night to be perfect. I wanted to believe that they still cared. My phone buzzed on the tablecloth. The vibration sounded like a chainsaw in the quiet room. I reached for it with a hand that has seen 72 years of hard labor, from laying concrete foundations to sketching skyscrapers. The screen lit up. It was a notification from the group chat named King Family. My heart jumped. This was it. They were probably just around the corner. They were probably texting to tell me to open the garage door. I unlocked the phone. It was a photo. It wasn't a photo of a traffic jam. It wasn't a photo of a flat tire. It was a selfie. Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, took up most of the frame. She was grinning, her teeth bleached a blinding white, wearing a fur-lined parka that cost more than my first house. Behind her, I saw them. All of them. Marcus, my eldest son, was holding a glass of champagne, his face flushed with liquor. Nia, my daughter, was laughing at something off-camera, looking elegant and expensive. Darius, my youngest, was throwing up a peace sign, looking like a fool. They weren't in Chicago. The background showed snow-covered pine trees and a massive log cabin lodge with a fire pit roaring in the distance. The geotag at the top of the photo read Aspen, Colorado. I stared at the image. My thumb hovered over the screen. Aspen. They were 1,000 miles away. Then the text messages started rolling in one after another like punches to the gut. Tiffany wrote, "Merry Christmas from the slopes. We decided to do a last-minute bonding trip. The snow is amazing." I felt a coldness spread from my chest to my fingertips. Last minute. You don't book a luxury lodge in Aspen last minute on Christmas. This had been planned for months. They had planned this while I was asking them what they wanted for dinner. They had planned this while I was ordering the beef. I typed slowly, my fingers stiff. "I thought you were coming for dinner. The food is ready." The 3 dots appeared. Marcus was typing. The message popped up. "Look, Dad, be realistic. Nobody wants to sit in that drafty old house smelling like mothballs and your arthritis cream. It's depressing. We wanted to have actual fun this year. Eat alone. You're used to it." I read the words again. Smell of arthritis cream. Depressing. I didn't reply. I couldn't. The air had left my lungs. Then another bubble appeared. This one was from Darius. "Hey Pops, since you're saving money on hosting us, can you transfer me $5,000? I kinda maxed out the Amex on the lift tickets and Tiff's champagne. Don't be a Scrooge. Love you." He added a praying hands emoji. "Love you." He typed "love you" while asking for $5,000 seconds after his brother told me I smelled like an old man and should eat alone. I looked up from the phone. I looked at the empty chairs. I looked at the portrait of Beatrice hanging on the wall. Her eyes seemed to be weeping. 5 years ago, when she was dying of cancer in the hospice ward, it was Christmas Eve too. I had called them then. I had begged them to come. Marcus said he had a merger to close. Nia said she couldn't leave her dog alone. Darius didn't even answer. Beatrice died holding my hand, whispering their names. She died waiting for children who were too busy spending the money we gave them. I swore on her grave I would give them one last chance. I swore I would try to be the father they claimed I wasn't. I kept the trust funds open. I paid the credit card bills. I covered the business losses. I bought the houses they lived in under shell companies so they could feel like big shots. I thought love was a safety net. I thought if I caught them every time they fell, they would eventually learn to stand. But they didn't learn to stand. They just learned that I would always be there to catch them. They learned that I was a resource, not a person. To them, I wasn't Reggie King, the man who built half the skyline of this city. I was just the old man, the ATM, the nuisance. Eat alone. The words echoed in my head. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. I picked up the bottle of Chateau Margaux 1982. It was heavy, cold. I walked into the kitchen. The stainless steel sink gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. I didn't look for a corkscrew. I didn't look for a glass. I smashed the neck of the bottle against the edge of the sink. Glass shattered. Dark red wine exploded, splashing onto my white shirt looking like fresh blood. I poured the rest of the bottle down the drain. $2,000 of vintage wine gurgled away, mixing with the dishwater. It felt good. I grabbed the platter of Wagyu beef. It was still warm. I walked to the back door, opened it, and whistled. The stray dog that lived in the alley, a scruffy thing with one ear, came trotting up. He looked at me with more gratitude in his eyes than my children had shown me in 40 years. "Merry Christmas, boy," I said, dumping the meat onto a clean patch of snow. I went back inside and locked the door. I didn't clean up the broken glass. I didn't put away the food. I left the dining room exactly as it was, a monument to their ingratitude. I walked to the hallway and stood before the heavy oak door that led to the basement. My children hated the basement. They called it my dungeon. They said it was full of junk. Old blueprints, drafting tables, dusty file cabinets. They never went down there. They thought it was beneath them. They were right. It was beneath them, literally and figuratively. I walked down the creaking wooden stairs. The air down here was cool and dry. It smelled of paper and ink, the smell of my life's work. In the corner behind a stack of old Architectural Digest magazines was a wall panel. I pushed it aside. Behind it sat a safe. Not a rinky-dink keypad safe you buy at a hardware store. This was a titanium-reinforced biometric vault installed by a specialist from Zurich. I placed my thumb on the scanner. A green light flashed. The heavy steel door clicked and swung open. Inside there was no jewelry. There was no stack of cash. There was a single thick black binder and a red phone. I took the binder out. On the cover in gold foil were the words, "The Omega Protocol." I opened the binder. The first page was a photograph of the four of us. Me, Marcus, Nia, and Darius, taken 20 years ago. We were smiling. Beatrice was taking the picture. I looked at their young faces. I remembered teaching Marcus to ride a bike. I remembered braiding Nia's hair when Beatrice was working late. I remembered holding Darius when he scraped his knee. I took the photo out of the plastic sleeve. I looked at it for one long second. Then I ripped it in half, then in quarters. I let the pieces fall to the concrete floor. I picked up the red phone. It was a direct line. I only had one number programmed into it. It rang twice. A voice answered. It was gravelly, tired, but sharp. Cohen. My lawyer. My oldest friend. A man who had fought in the trenches of business law with me since we were both hungry and broke in the 70s. Reggie Cohen asked, "It's Christmas Eve. Is everything all right?" "No, Cohen," I said. My voice didn't shake. It was as hard as the steel beams I used to inspect. "Everything is not all right, but it's about to be corrected." There was a pause on the line. Cohen knew me better than anyone. He heard the tone. "Are you sure?" Cohen asked softly. "You know what happens if we do this. There is no going back. This is the nuclear option, Reggie. I looked at the text message on my personal cell phone one last time. Eat alone. I am sure, I said. Okay, Cohen sighed. What do you want to execute? I want you to activate the Omega Protocol, I said. Dissolve the blind trust. Revoke the power of attorney. And, Cohen, yeah, Reggie. Draft the eviction notices. I want them served electronically by midnight. I want the locks changed on the company assets by tomorrow morning. Reggie Cohen warned, his voice serious. We are talking about your children. If I push this button, Marcus loses his job. Naya loses her store. Darius loses everything. They will be on the street. It's winter. I know, I said. I looked at the shattered wine bottle in the sink upstairs in my mind's eye. They wanted me to eat alone, Cohen, so I'm going to let them starve alone. Do it. I hung up the phone. The clock upstairs chimed 9:00 p.m. The war had begun, and they were 1,000 miles away drinking champagne, completely unaware that the ground beneath their feet had just been liquidated. I hung up the red phone, and the silence in the basement felt heavier than the concrete slab above my head. The air was cold, recycled, and smelled of old paper and dust, the scent of secrets kept for too long. My thumb was still resting on the receiver, pressing it down hard, as if I were trying to crush the connection between my past and my future. My eyes drifted to the corner of the room where an old dusty cardboard box sat slightly open. A framed photograph stuck out from the top half, covered by a stack of yellowed blueprints. I walked over to it, my footsteps echoing on the cement floor. My knees popped and groaned with every step, a painful reminder of the 72 years I had spent carrying the weight of this family. I pulled the photo out. It was taken 5 years ago. The image was blurry, a candid shot taken by a nurse who had kind eyes and a trembling hand. It was me and Beatrice. We were in a hospice room at St. Luke's. The walls were that sterile, hopeless beige that hospitals use to mask the color of death. Beatrice was lying in the bed, her skin translucent, her beautiful hair gone, her body so small beneath the white sheets that she looked like a child. I was sitting beside her in a plastic chair, holding her hand. I was wearing this same white shirt, though it fit better then. I remembered that night with a clarity that cut like a razor. It was Christmas Eve, just like tonight. The snow was falling outside the hospital window, thick and silent. The doctors had told me it was a matter of hours. The cancer had consumed everything but her spirit, and even that was flickering like a candle in a gale. "Where are they, Reggie?" she had whispered. Her voice was like dry leaves scraping together. I had lied to her. I told her the flights were grounded. I told her the storm was too bad. I told her they were at the airport, sleeping on benches, desperate to get to her. But I knew the truth. I had called Marcus 3 times. He was in Cabo San Lucas. I could hear the ocean and the thumping bass of house music in the background. "Dad," he had shouted over the noise, "tell her I love her, but there are no flights. I'm closing a deal here. I'll be there in 2 days." I called Nia. She was in New York for Fashion Week. She didn't answer, just sent a text. "Can't talk. Runway show starting. Send Mom my love." I didn't even know where Darius was. His phone was disconnected. Beatrice squeezed my hand that night. She knew I was lying. She always knew. She looked at me with eyes that were already seeing another world and made me promise. "Give them time, Reggie," she wheezed. "They are lost. Give them one more chance. Promise me you won't cut them off until you are sure there is no hope." I promised her. I kissed her forehead as she took her last breath. I sat alone in that room for 4 hours until the coroner came, listening to the silence, feeling the hate grow in my stomach like a tumor. That was 5 years ago. I looked at the photo in my hand. 5 years of chances. 5 years of paying their debts. 5 years of bailing them out of jail, out of bad investments, out of their own stupidity. 5 years of hoping that the grief of losing their mother would change them. But tonight they were in Aspen, drinking champagne, laughing, telling me to eat alone. Today was the limit. The statute of limitations on my promise to Beatrice had just expired. I walked back to the desk. The red phone sat there silent and ominous. I picked it up again. Cohen picked up on the first ring. He hadn't gone to sleep. He was waiting. "I am ready," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, devoid of the warmth that usually defined me. It was the voice of the man who fired incompetent contractors, the man who sued corrupt city officials. It was the voice of the architect. Cohen exhaled a long, shaky breath on the other end of the line. "Reggie, he said, his voice cracking with age and concern. I have the file open in front of me. The Omega Protocol. Do you remember when we drafted this 10 years ago? I replied. We drafted it as a failsafe, Cohen said. A nuclear option in case you lost your mind or were being extorted. We never meant to use it against them. They are extorting me, Cohen, I said. They have been extorting me for love, for money, for patience for 40 years, and tonight they declared war. Reggie, listen to me, Cohen pleaded. I am looking at the asset list. If I execute this dissolve order, the blind trust ceases to exist immediately. The ownership of the shell companies reverts to Kingston Holdings. And Kingston Holdings is wholly owned by you. I know how my own company works, Cohen. But do you understand the immediate physical consequences? Cohen asked his lawyer, instincts trying to find a loophole in my anger. Marcus' house in the suburbs. The deed is held by the trust. If the trust dissolves, he is trespassing. The company car he drives, the corporate credit cards, it all shuts down. I stared at the concrete wall. Nia's boutique. Cohen continued, his voice rising. The commercial lease is guaranteed by the trust. The inventory loans are backed by the trust. If I pull the plug, the bank locks the doors tomorrow morning. She will have nothing to sell. She will be bankrupt by noon. Good, I said, and Darius Cohen whispered. The penthouse, the allowance, the legal retainer that keeps him out of prison for those DUIs. It all goes away. Reggie, if I hit enter, they are not just cut off. By tomorrow morning, they will be homeless, literally homeless. It is 10 degrees below zero in Chicago. I closed my eyes. I saw the text message again. Eat alone, old man. They are in Aspen, Cohen, I said. They are warm. They have 5-star room service. They have my credit cards. Not for long, Cohen murmured. Execute it, I commanded. Reggie, please, sleep on it. It's Christmas. I looked down at the dusty floor. In the corner next to the safe was a small wooden box. It contained the few toys I had saved from their childhood. A wooden train I carved for Marcus. A dollhouse I built for Nia. A baseball glove I bought for Darius. They hadn't touched those things in 30 years. I didn't sleep on it when I worked double shifts to pay for their private schools, I said, my voice rising, echoing off the cold walls. I didn't sleep on it when I invested every penny I had into land while my friends were buying fancy cars. I didn't sleep on it when I built a legacy so heavy it broke my back. There was silence on the line. They didn't come. Cohen, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. Beatrice is gone, and tonight I realized I have been sitting at a table set for ghosts. I heard the clicking of a keyboard on the other end. It was a slow, deliberate sound. Okay, Reggie, Cohen said softly. I am accessing the mainframe. Authorization code Kingston-1982, I said. The year I bought that bottle of wine. The year I thought we were a family. Access granted, Cohen said. His voice was professional now, detached. Step 1. Dissolution of the blind trust. Executing. I waited. I imagined the digital signals racing through the fiber optic cables buried under the frozen city. I imagined servers in secure rooms blinking, processing the command that would erase my children's entitlement. Done, Cohen said. The assets have reverted. Step 2, I said. Revocation of privileges. Cohen typed. Employment contracts for Marcus King terminated for cause. Embezzlement of company funds for personal travel. Effective immediately. Notification sent to HR and company security. I felt a twinge in my chest, a phantom pain of the father I used to be. But then I remembered Marcus calling me annoying. Continue, I said. Commercial lease guarantee for Nia King revoked, Cohen read. Notice of default sent to the lending bank, triggering immediate foreclosure clause, locks to be changed by property management within 12 hours. And the boy, I said. Credit facility for Darius King suspended, Cohen said. Vehicle repossession order issued to private security firm. Lease on penthouse 4B terminated, notice to vacate issued. It is done, Cohen said. The screen shows all systems red. The accounts are frozen, the cards are declined, the legal notices have been sent to their emails and their phones. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. What about the service, I asked. I am sending the electronic service of process now, Cohen said. They will get a notification. A priority alert. It will look like a Christmas greeting until they open it. Send it, I said. Sent. I stood there in the basement, the phone still to my ear. It was done. The bridges were burned. The safety net was gone. Cohen cleared his throat. Reggie. Yes, Cohen. What do you want to do about the house? Which house? I asked. The one you are standing in, Cohen said. The family home. The trust held the title to that too. It is now yours, free and clear. But the deed has a clause. I knew the clause. I had written it. Sell it, I said. Reggie, sell it, Cohen. I want it on the market tonight. I want a sold sign on the lawn before they get back from Aspen. I don't want them to have a doorstep to cry on. You really are the architect, aren't you? Cohen said, a mix of fear and admiration in his voice. You deconstruct as well as you build. I am just cleaning up the job site, Cohen. Merry Christmas. I hung up the phone. I walked over to the corner and picked up the photo of the family I had thrown there earlier. The glass was cracked, the frame was bent. I didn't try to fix it. I didn't try to wipe the dust off. I walked over to the metal trash can I used for shredding documents. I dropped the photo inside, then I reached into my pocket, pulled out a book of matches and struck one. The flame flared up bright and hot, illuminating the dark corners of the basement. I watched it burn down toward my fingertips. For 40 years I had kept them warm. I had set myself on fire to keep them warm. I dropped the match into the can. The paper caught instantly. The faces of my smiling children curled and blackened, turning into ash and smoke. I watched it burn until there was nothing left but gray dust. I turned around and walked up the stairs, leaving the basement door open behind me. I went back to the dining room. The food was cold. The smell of the spilled wine was pungent and sour. My phone buzzed again. It was a notification from my bank app. Transaction declined. Darius King, Aspen Ski Resort. $5 $200. Then another. Transaction declined. Marcus King, the Alpine Bar. $850. And another. Transaction declined. Naya King, Lux Spa Aspen. $1 $200. I picked up the phone. I didn't unlock it. I just watched the notifications roll in, one after another, a cascade of rejection. They were finding out. The panic was starting. The embarrassment. The realization that the plastic cards in their pockets were just worthless pieces of plastic. I walked to the window and looked out at the snowstorm burying Chicago. The streetlights flickered. Somewhere in Aspen, the music had just stopped. I poured myself a glass of tap water. I raised it to the empty room. To family, I whispered. And then I took a sip, and for the first time in 5 years, the water didn't taste like bitterness. It tasted like freedom. I walked up the stairs from the basement, leaving the smell of smoke and burnt memories behind me. My knees cracked with every step, a rhythm of old bones that my son Marcus always mocked. He liked to say that I moved like a tortoise. He liked to say that the world belonged to the fast, to the hungry, to the young. I entered my study on the second floor. It was the only room in the house that had been renovated in the last 20 years. To my children, it was just a dusty library where the old man read his newspapers and fell asleep in his leather chair. They never looked closely at the computer setup on the desk. They never noticed the dedicated fiber optic line hardwired into the wall. They saw what they wanted to see, a relic. I sat down in the chair. It groaned under my weight. I woke up the computer. The screens hummed to life, casting a cold blue light over my face. Marcus, my firstborn, the boy who used to sit on my lap and watch me draw blueprints for hours. Now he was Marcus King, the CEO of MK Capital. He walked around Chicago in $3,000 custom suits, giving interviews to business magazines about being a self-made man. He told everyone he built his investment firm from the ground up with nothing but grit and genius. He believed his own lie. That was the tragedy of it. He actually believed he was a genius. He didn't know the truth. He didn't know that MK Capital was a subsidiary. He didn't know that 80% of the assets under his management came from one silent investor. He didn't know that the board of directors answered to a single holding company, Kingston Holdings. And he certainly didn't know that the chairman of the board of Kingston Holdings was the old man he had just left to eat alone on Christmas Eve. I typed in my secure credentials. The screen shifted. The interface changed from a standard desktop to the administrative command center of the holding company. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. I navigated to the personnel files. I pulled up the file for Marcus King, CEO. I looked at his corporate credit card statement. It updated in real time. There it was, the evidence of his genius. The Aspen trip wasn't just a family betrayal. It was corporate theft. I scrolled through the transactions. 5 first-class tickets to Colorado. Charged to the company account under client development. The rental of the private lodge. $20,000. Charged to the company account under venue hire. The champagne, the caviar, the lift tickets, even the damn ski rentals. All of it was categorized as business expenses. He was stealing from me to spit in my face. I sat back staring at the numbers. I remembered when Marcus was 10 years old. He had stolen a candy bar from the corner store. I marched him back, made him apologize to the owner and pay for it with his allowance. He had cried then. He had learned shame. Somewhere along the way, between the private schools I paid for and the Ivy League degree I bought, he had lost that shame. He had decided that the rules were for other people. He had decided that because he was a king, he was entitled to the kingdom. But he forgot that the king is the one who wears the crown. And tonight, the king was in a bad mood. I opened the executive action menu. My finger hovered over the mouse. This was my son. This was the boy I named after my own father. If I did this, I wasn't just firing him. I was destroying his career. Embezzlement is a permanent stain. He would never work in finance again. He would be toxic. Then I looked at the phone on my desk. The notification from the group chat was still there. Eat alone. I clicked. Terminate employment. Cause gross misconduct and embezzlement. A dialog box popped up. Are you sure? I clicked yes. Another box. Execute immediate lockout. I clicked yes. The system began to process. It was swift and silent. At this very moment, 4 states away in a server farm in Virginia, the digital identity of Marcus King was being erased. His company email was being deactivated. His access to the company's servers was being revoked. His keycard for the office building in downtown Chicago was being deauthorized. And the corporate credit card in his wallet, the black card he loved to flash at bartenders to impress his wife, was being turned into a useless piece of plastic. I watched the status bar load. 100%. Status terminated. It was done. My son was unemployed. He just didn't know it yet. I closed the file. I leaned back and closed my eyes, listening to the wind howl outside. The snow was piling up against the window pane. Suddenly, my personal cell phone rang. The ringtone was shrill and demanding. I looked at the screen. Tiffany. My daughter-in-law. The woman who had convinced Marcus that his family wasn't good enough. The woman who refused to let my grandchildren call me grandpa because she said it sounded too lower class. She preferred, Reginald said with a sneer. I swiped to answer. Reggie, she screamed. Her voice was slurred, thick with expensive vodka and unearned arrogance. The background noise was deafening. House music, laughter, the sound of people having the time of their lives on my dime. Hello, Tiffany, I said calmly. Don't you? Hello, Tiffany, me, you miserable old man, she yelled. I just saw the notification. Did you cancel the cards? Marcus is trying to pay for bottle service and the card is declining? You better fix this right now. She didn't know. She thought it was just a glitch. She thought I had forgotten to pay a bill. She had no idea the earth had already opened up beneath her feet. I didn't cancel anything, Tiffany, I said. I am just sitting here eating my dinner. Don't lie to me, she screeched. God, you are so useless. We try to have one nice holiday, one break from your depressing energy, and you have to ruin it with your incompetence. She took a breath, or maybe a drink. I could hear Marcus in the background yelling at a waiter demanding to speak to a manager. Listen to me closely, Reggie, Tiffany hissed. The venom in her voice was palpable. We are done with this. We are done with you. Marcus and I talked. When we get back to Chicago tomorrow, things are changing. Oh, I asked. Yes, oh, she mocked. We are putting you in Sun Valley. You know the place, the nursing home on the outskirts. We already have the brochures. It's perfect for you. They have nurses who can deal with your senility. I am not senile, Tiffany. You are whatever we say you are. She laughed a cruel, sharp sound. And that house, that drafty, ugly piece of junk you live in, we are selling it. We are selling it for the land value. Marcus says the market is hot. We are going to cash out, put you in a home, and finally get the inheritance we deserve while we are still young enough to enjoy it. I gripped the phone. My knuckles turned white. They had been planning this. While I was buying the beef, while I was polishing the silver, they were planning to lock me away and sell the roof over my head. So fix the damn credit card, Reggie, Tiffany shouted. Or I swear to God I will have the orderlies come pick you up in a van before New Year's Eve. Do you hear me? I heard her. I heard her loud and clear. I looked at the computer screen. The words, Status terminated glowed in red letters next to her husband's name. She didn't know that the corporate jet they flew in on was scheduled to be repossessed in the morning. She didn't know that the penthouse they lived in was owned by the company I just fired her husband from. She didn't know that she was threatening the man who held the deed to her entire existence. "I hear you, Tiffany," I said. My voice was low, steady. The voice of a structural engineer who knows exactly how much pressure a beam can take before it snaps. "Good," she sneered. "Now call the bank. We have a party to finish." She hung up on me. I put the phone down on the desk. The silence returned to the room, but it felt different now. It wasn't lonely anymore. It was charged. It was the silence before the dynamite blows. Sun Valley Nursing Home. That was their plan. To discard me like a broken tool. I looked at the computer again. I opened a new window. I navigated to the legal department files. I pulled up the deed to the mansion Marcus and Tiffany lived in. It was a beautiful house in the suburbs. 6 bedrooms, a pool, a wine cellar. I had bought it 5 years ago through Kingston Holdings. I let them live there rent-free. I told them it was a tax write-off for the company. They never asked questions. They just moved in and changed the locks. I clicked on the Property Management tab. Notice to vacate. Reason termination of employment. Loss of corporate housing privileges. Timeline immediate. I filled in the fields. I attached the termination letter I had just generated for Marcus. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight in Chicago. If I sent this now, the process server would be at their front door at 8:00 a.m. tomorrow morning. They wouldn't even be back from Aspen yet. They would come home to changed locks and security guards on the lawn. I thought about Tiffany's voice. "You are whatever we say you are." I clicked send. The email whooshed away. I stood up from the desk. My legs felt stronger. The pain in my back had faded into a dull throb. Adrenaline is a powerful drug. I walked to the window and looked out at the storm. The snow was burying the street, erasing the footprints, covering the world in a clean white sheet. They wanted to sell my house. They wanted to put me away. They were about to find out that you don't evict the landlord. I turned off the lights in the study. I walked out into the hallway. 1 down, 2 to go. I headed toward the stairs. Naya was next. My daughter. The fashionista, the entrepreneur, the girl who thought she was running a business empire when all she was really doing was playing dress-up with my money. It was time to close up shop. I walked down the hall to the guest bedroom that I had converted into a secondary office years ago. This was where I kept the files that didn't fit in the main study. Specifically, the files related to my daughter, Nia. Nia liked to call herself a serial entrepreneur. Her Instagram bio read Founder, CEO, Visionary. She posted photos of herself at fashion weeks in Paris and Milan, holding champagne flutes, wearing sunglasses indoors. To the world, she was Nia King, the owner of Luxe Noir, a chain of high-end boutiques that were supposedly revolutionizing the Chicago fashion scene. To me, she was a financial black hole. I sat down at the small desk and pulled a thick red accordion folder from the drawer. It was heavy. It felt like carrying a brick. I opened it and the paperwork spilled out like a confession. For 10 years, Nia had been running a business model that consisted entirely of buying high and selling low. She rented retail spaces in the most expensive districts. She hired staff she couldn't afford. She bought inventory that no one wanted. Every time she hit a wall, every time a supplier threatened to sue or a landlord threatened eviction, a mysterious angel investor would swoop in, a company called Apex Ventures. Naya loved Apex Ventures. She bragged about them to her friends. She told everyone that Apex saw her potential. She told everyone that Apex understood her vision. She didn't know that Apex Ventures was a shell company registered in Delaware. She didn't know that the sole signatory for Apex Ventures was her father, the man she just told to eat alone on Christmas. I flipped through the promissory notes. Loan. $300,000 for the initial build-out of the flagship store. Status defaulted. Refinanced by Apex. Loan 2. $200,000 for the spring collection that never sold. Status defaulted. Interest capitalized by Apex. Loan 3. $500,000 for the expansion into Miami, a store that stayed open for 3 months before closing due to mismanagement. Status total loss. Absorbed by Apex. I looked at the bottom line. The total principal amount Nia owed to Apex Ventures, and by extension to me, was $1.5 million. She hadn't made a payment in 4 years. Not one dime. She treated the loans like grants. She treated the debt like a donation. My phone buzzed again. Another message in the King family group chat. I picked it up. It was Nia. Dad, don't be stingy about the house. Marcus is right. The market is peaking. Sell it. But honestly, the split needs to be fair. I need 40%. I have a liquidity crunch with the new line launching and I need to expand the branches. 40% is fair considering I'm the only one building a legacy here. I stared at the screen. Building a legacy. She was building a mountain of debt on a foundation of my money, and now she wanted to sell the roof over my head to dig the hole deeper. Liquidity crunch. That was her favorite phrase. It was code for I spent all the revenue on first-class flights and designer handbags. I looked at the loan agreement in front of me. It was a standard commercial contract drafted by Cohen. But Cohen, being the paranoid genius that he was, had inserted a special clause in the addendum. Clause 14B, the Character and Conduct Clause. It stated that the lender Apex Ventures reserved the right to call the loan in full immediately and without grace period if the borrower engaged in conduct that was deemed disrespectful, disparaging, or harmful to the personal or professional reputation of the lender or the lender's agents. Since I was the lender and she had just disparaged me in writing to the entire family, the clause was active. And there was another document. The collateral agreement. Nia didn't own her stores, she leased them. But to secure the loans from Apex, she had put up the only asset she actually owned. Her house, a brownstone in Lincoln Park that I had gifted her the down payment for 10 years ago. She had signed the deed over as collateral. She probably didn't even read the paperwork. She just signed where the angel investor told her to sign so she could get the check. I picked up the red phone again. Cohen, I said. I am here, Reggie. Pull the file on Nia King. Apex Ventures versus Lux Noir. I have it, Cohen said. She just demanded 40% of my home, I said. She wants to expand. Expand what? Cohen asked dryly. Her debt ceiling. She triggered Clause 14B, I said. The disparagement clause, Cohen noted. You want to call the note, I want to call it all Cohen. The principal, the interest, the penalties. I want immediate repayment of the $1.5 million. She doesn't have it, Reggie Cohen said. You know she doesn't have it. Her business account is overdrawn. I saw the alert this morning. Then execute the collateral seizure, I said. The house, Cohen asked. The house, I confirmed. And Cohen, yes, the inventory. The stores. Everything inside them belongs to Apex Ventures until the debt is paid. I want you to file an emergency injunction to padlock the commercial locations. Tonight. On Christmas Eve, Cohen asked. Especially on Christmas Eve, I said. I want the locks changed before the holiday sales start tomorrow. I don't want her selling a single scarf that belongs to me. Reggie Cohen said, his voice hesitant. If we lock the stores tomorrow, she misses the biggest revenue day of the year. It will kill the brand. The business will be dead by New Year's. The business has been dead for 10 years, Cohen, I said. I have just been paying for the funeral expenses. It is time to bury the corpse. Understood, Cohen said. I am filing the petition with the emergency duty judge now. We have a standing relationship. The writs of attachment will be issued within the hour. What about her house, I asked. The foreclosure notice will be posted on her door tomorrow morning, Cohen said. She has 30 days to cure the default, which means she has 30 days to find $1.5 million. She won't find it, I said. No. Cohen agreed. She won't. Do it. I hung up. I looked at the text message again. 40%. I typed a reply. I didn't send it, I just typed it to see how it looked. 40% of 0 is 0, Nia. I deleted the text. I didn't want to warn her. I wanted her to find out when she tried to unlock her store tomorrow morning and her key didn't work. I wanted her to find out when the security guard handed her a court order instead of a coffee. I sat in the guest room surrounded by the paperwork of my daughter's failures. I remembered when she opened her first store. She was 25. She looked so proud. I cut the ribbon. She hugged me and said, I did it, Daddy. I hadn't had the heart to tell her then that I had secretly bought the first $10,000 worth of merchandise just so her opening day wouldn't be a flop. I had hired actors to come in and shop so she would feel successful. I had created a fantasy world for her because I couldn't bear to see her fail. And in doing so, I had created a monster who thought she was entitled to my blood. I closed the red folder. I walked over to the window. The snow was falling harder now, a white curtain closing on the world. Nia was in Aspen, probably wearing a $3,000 ski suit I paid for drinking champagne. I paid for complaining to her brothers about how cheap I was. Tomorrow morning she would wake up and check her sales figures. She would expect a Christmas miracle. Instead, she was going to get a lesson in economics, asset forfeiture, liquidation, bankruptcy. I walked out of the room and shut the door. I didn't lock it. There was nothing in there worth stealing anymore. Just paper ghosts of a dream that never really existed. 2 down, 1 to go. I looked toward the living room. The large flat-screen television was mounted on the wall. I rarely turned it on, but tonight I needed to see something. Darius. My baby boy. The one Beatrice spoiled the most. The one who had never worked a day in his life. I walked into the living room and picked up the remote. I navigated to the social media app on the smart TV. I searched for his handle. King Darius VIP. He was live. The screen filled with his face. He was holding a bottle of vodka swaying back and forth. The music was loud. He was in the lodge in Aspen. "Yo, what is up, everybody?" Darius shouted at the camera. "We are live from Aspen. Living that king life. You know how we do. Big money, big moves." He turned the camera to show Marcus and Nia in the background. They waved, looking bored and wealthy. "Shout out to the haters," Darius yelled. "Shout out to everyone stuck in their boring lives while we out here on the mountain." He laughed. It was a cruel, empty sound. I watched him preen. I watched him boast. I watched him claim to be a king. He didn't know he was just a jester dancing on a trapdoor. And I had my hand on the lever. I sat down on the sofa. I put the remote down next to me. It was time to take away his toys. I sat on the vintage leather sofa in my living room, the only piece of furniture in the house that Darius hadn't called garbage. The large television screen mounted above the fireplace flickered with the manic energy of a live broadcast. I held the remote in one hand and my secure tablet in the other. On the screen was my youngest son, Darius, 35 years old, and he had never held a job for longer than 3 months. He was currently broadcasting to 12,000 followers on social media under the handle King Darius. The video feed was shaky and loud. He was in the VIP section of a club in Aspen. The bass was thumping so hard it distorted the microphone on his phone. He was wearing a designer hoodie that cost $600 and holding a bottle of vodka that cost 10 times that. He looked sweaty, manic, and completely full of himself. "Yo, what is good, everybody?" Darius shouted into the camera, his eyes glazed over. "We are live from the top of the world, baby. The King family taking over Aspen. Look at this spread." He panned the camera around. I saw trays of seafood towers, sparklers flaring out of champagne bottles, and a group of hangers-on people I didn't know drinking my liquor and laughing at my son's jokes. They weren't his friends. They were parasites feeding on a host I had kept fat and happy for too long. Darius turned the camera back to himself. He leaned in close, his face filling the frame. "I gotta give a shout-out to the haters," he slurred. "And yeah, I mean my pops back in Chicago. Old man stayed home 'cause he wanted to save money on heating bills probably." He grinned, showing off his veneered teeth. "Man is sitting in this dark right now counting pennies while we are out here making it rain. Don't be like him, y'all. Live your life. Spend that money. You can't take it with you, right?" I watched him laugh at me. He was right about one thing. I was sitting in the dark, but I wasn't counting pennies. I was counting the seconds until his reality shattered. I looked down at my tablet. I had the asset management portal open. Darius thought he was rich. He thought he was independent. He drove a Porsche 911 GT3 that he affectionately called the Beast. He lived in a penthouse apartment on the 42nd floor of the Spire overlooking the lake. He bragged about his investments and his crypto portfolio. It was all smoke and mirrors. I had set up the King Family Trust 10 years ago. Every asset Darius used was titled to that trust. The Porsche wasn't his. It belonged to the trust. The penthouse wasn't his. The lease was held by the trust. The black Amex Platinum card he was currently waving around like a magic wand was issued to the trust, with me as the guarantor. I was the trust, and the trust had just decided to liquidate. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had saved for emergencies. It wasn't the police. It was Titan Security Services, a private firm that specialized in high-end asset recovery. They didn't ask questions. They just executed orders. "This is dispatch," a voice answered, crisp and professional. "This is Reginald King," I said. "Account number Delta 74. Verification code, sir." Blueprints, I said. Go ahead, Mr. King. I need an immediate asset recovery, I said, keeping my eyes on the television screen where Darius was now pouring vodka into the mouth of a blonde woman I had never seen before. The Porsche 911 GT3, license plate King 03. It is currently parked in the long-term valet lot at O'Hare Airport. We have the location on file, sir, the dispatcher said. What is the order? Repossess it, I said. I want it on a flatbed within the hour. Take it to the impound lot at the dealership and send a team to the Spire. Unit 4B, the penthouse, sir. Yes. Trigger the electronic locks. Seal the unit. No one enters. If anyone is inside, escort them out. If no one is inside, change the codes. Understood, Mr. King, the dispatcher said. Reason for the order. Termination of usage rights, I said. The owner is reclaiming the property. Consider it done. I hung up. On the screen, Darius was now climbing onto a table. He was holding the black credit card up to the camera lens. See this, he shouted. This is the key to the city. Unlimited access, baby. The waiter is bringing the bill, and we are about to show them how the Kings do it. He waved at a waiter who was approaching with a leather folder. Check this out, Darius yelled to his followers. Watch the magic happen. He slapped the black card onto the tray. The waiter bowed slightly and took it walking away toward the point-of-sale terminal. I looked down at my tablet. I pulled up the credit card management screen for the trust. I found the card ending in 4098, the one assigned to Darius. The limit was technically unlimited because I always paid the balance in full every month. Not tonight. I clicked on the card details. Status active. I moved my finger over the toggle switch labeled Suspend Account. On the TV screen, Darius was doing a little dance waiting for his receipt. He was high-fiving his friends. He was the man of the hour. I tapped the screen. A small spinning wheel appeared. Then a green check mark. Status suspended. Reason reported stolen. I sat back and waited. The delay on the live stream was about 10 seconds. I watched Darius laugh. I watched him take a swig of champagne. Then I saw the waiter coming back. He wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't bowing. He was walking fast, and he had a large man in a suit with an earpiece walking behind him. The manager. They approached the table. The music was loud, but the microphone picked up the change in atmosphere. Sir, the waiter said, leaning in close to Darius. What's good, my man, Darius said, reaching for the folder. We good. Sir. The card was declined. The waiter said loudly enough to be heard over the bass. Darius laughed, a nervous, incredulous laugh. Impossible, bro. Run it again. That's a platinum. There is no limit. We ran it 3 times, sir. The manager stepped in, his voice cutting through the noise. The bank says the card has been reported stolen. Stolen, Darius shouted. His face went from flushed to pale in a second. That is my card. My name is on it. Look at it. Sir, we need another form of payment, the manager said, crossing his arms. The bill is $5,200. Darius patted his pockets. He pulled out another card. A gold one, also issued by the trust. Also suspended by me 30 seconds ago. Try this one, he said, his voice cracking. The machine is probably just broken. The manager took it. He pulled out a handheld terminal from his pocket and swiped it right there in front of the camera. A loud beep echoed. A red light flashed. Declined. The chat on the live stream was going crazy. The hearts and fire emojis had stopped. Now the comments were scrolling fast. LOL declined. Bro is broke. Awkward. Daddy cut him off. I watched Darius look around the room. The hangers-on, the people drinking his liquor, they were starting to back away. The blonde woman had already disappeared. Yo guys, Darius said, turning to his friends, my bank is tripping. Someone cover this and I will Venmo you cash in the morning. I swear. Nobody moved. Nobody reached for their wallet. They were looking at their phones, avoiding eye contact. They smelled the weakness. They smelled the poverty. Sir, the manager said, stepping closer. If you cannot pay, we will have to call the police. This is theft of services. Darius looked at the camera, his eyes wide with panic. He suddenly remembered he was live. He scrambled to grab the phone. Yo, technical difficulties, guys. We gonna be right back, he stammered. The feed cut to black. I put the remote down. He was $5,000 in debt in a city where he knew no one, without a car, without a home to go back to, and without a father to bail him out. I looked at the notifications on my tablet. Porsche 911 GT3, status recovered, in transit, Unit 4B, status sealed, security detail posted. I thought about the times I had bailed him out before, the DUI in college, the gambling debt in Vegas, the assault charge that I made disappear with a high-priced lawyer. I had always shielded him. I had always told myself he was just finding his way. But he wasn't finding his way. He was lost. And the only way to find yourself is to be completely alone in the dark. I picked up my glass of water again. My hand was steady. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Darius. Dad, pick up. Emergency. Bank made a mistake. Need transfer ASAP. Cops involved. I looked at the message. I typed a reply. The bank didn't make a mistake. The account is closed. The car is gone. The apartment is locked. You called me stingy. You were right. Merry Christmas. I sent it. Then I blocked his number. I stood up and walked to the window. The snow was relentless. It covered the driveway where my children used to play. It covered the flower beds Beatrice used to tend. 3 strikes. They were all out. But I wasn't done. The night was still young and I had one more stop to make. Not a physical stop, but a spiritual one. I needed to say goodbye to the ghosts that had been haunting this house for 5 years. I turned away from the window and looked at the hallway. The house was empty now. Truly empty. No more expectations. No more waiting for cars that would never pull into the driveway. I was the architect, and I had just demolished the building to save the foundation. Now, I just had to survive the night. I walked through the hallways of my own home like a ghost haunting a museum. The silence was absolute heavy enough to crush a man, but tonight it felt like clarity. The digital slaughter was over. The accounts were frozen, the cars were flagged, the locks were changing. But the hardest part wasn't clicking a mouse. It was walking past the open doors of the bedrooms where my children used to sleep. I stopped in front of Marcus's old room. It was still painted that serious navy blue he had insisted on when he was 16. There was a framed diploma on the wall, the one from the prep school in the suburbs. I reached out and touched the glass. It was cold. I remembered the day he got into that school. I was working as a foreman on the foundation of the Weston Tower. We were pouring concrete in 90-degree heat. The dust was so thick you could chew it. I coughed up gray phlegm for 3 hours that night. I had worked 16 hours that day and the day before and the day before that. I did it because the tuition for 1 semester cost more than my first car. I wanted him to walk into rooms I was only allowed to clean. I wanted him to have a seat at the table. And what did he do with that seat? He used it to look down on me. I remembered a voicemail from 2 years ago. It was Thanksgiving. I had cooked a turkey. I was sitting in the kitchen watching the parade alone. I called him. He didn't answer. He sent a text. Dad can't make it. Crisis merger meeting. Working all night. Sorry. I believed him. I was proud of him. My hard-working son. 3 days later, I saw the photos on social media. He wasn't in a meeting. He was at a yacht party in Miami with Tiffany's family. He was holding a cigar, laughing, wearing a linen suit I paid for. He wasn't working. He just didn't want to be seen with the old engineer who smelled like drywall and Bengay. He was ashamed of the sweat that paid for his champagne. I took the diploma off the wall. I didn't smash it. I just held it under my arm. I moved down the hall to Nia's room. It still smelled faintly of lavender and old perfume. On the dresser sat a small porcelain ballerina. I bought that for her when she was 10. She had wanted to be a dancer before she wanted to be a fashion mogul. I picked up the figurine. I remembered the winter of '98. The heating system in this house had died. It was going to cost $4,000 to replace the furnace. Nia had a school trip to Paris for her art class. It cost $3,000. I didn't fix the furnace. I slept in my coat for 2 months. I used space heaters in their rooms and froze in mine. I ate instant noodles so she could eat croissants on the Champs-Élysées. I wanted her to see beauty. I wanted her to know the world was bigger than the south side of Chicago. And how did she repay me last Mother's Day? The first one after Beatrice died. I asked her to come visit the grave with me. Just an hour. Daddy, I can't, she had whined. The store is drowning. Inventory issues. I have to do inventory all weekend or we go under. I sent her a check for $10,000 to help. She cashed it in an hour. That weekend, her mother-in-law posted a video. They were at a spa retreat in Arizona. Nia was getting a mud bath. She looked relaxed. She looked happy. She didn't look like a woman doing inventory. She looked like a woman spending her father's grief money on a facial. I swept the porcelain ballerina into my pocket. I grabbed the framed photo of Nia at her graduation, the one where she was looking away from the camera, already bored with me. I walked to the end of the hall. Darius's room. It was a shrine to wasted potential. Trophies for participation. Posters of rappers he tried to emulate. I remembered the night he was arrested for the first time. He was 18. He had beaten up a kid who made fun of his sneakers. I went to the precinct at 3:00 a.m. I was tired. My back was spasming so bad I could barely stand. I sat on a hard wooden bench for 6 hours waiting for the bail hearing. I paid the bail, I paid the lawyer, I paid the other kid's family to drop the charges. I told him it was a mistake, I told him he was a good boy. I protected him because I thought the world would eat him alive if I didn't. But I was wrong. I wasn't protecting him from the world. I was feeding him to his own worst instincts. I taught him that consequences were things that happened to other people. I taught him that Daddy could fix anything with a checkbook. I remembered his text from last week. Pops need $2K. Car trouble. Stuck on the side of the road. I sent the money. 10 minutes later, I saw him on a live stream. He was at a casino. He was betting on black. He wasn't stuck on the side of the road. He was stuck in his own greed. I grabbed the photo of Darius from his nightstand. He was smiling that charming, manipulative smile that had worked on me for 35 years. I walked back downstairs, my arms full of frames, my pockets heavy with porcelain lies. The house felt massive. It felt like a tomb I had built for myself. Every beam, every floorboard, every brick was paid for with my sweat. I had missed birthdays to pour foundations. I had missed school plays to inspect steel girders. I had traded my time, my health, and my youth to build a fortress for them, and they had locked me in the dungeon. I walked to the living room. The fireplace was cold, dark, empty, just like this family. I knelt down. My knees cracked a sound like a pistol shot in the quiet room. I piled the photos in the grate. Marcus in his suit, Naya in her designer dress, Darius with his fake smile, the diploma, the participation trophies. I reached for the box of matches again. My hands didn't shake, they were steady. These were the hands that held a pencil to draft the skyline of Chicago. These were the hands that tied rebar in the freezing rain. They were strong hands, capable hands. I struck a match. The smell of sulfur filled my nose. It was a clean smell, honest. I touched the flame to the corner of Marcus's diploma. The paper curled. The gold seal bubbled and turned black. I watched the fire spread. It licked at the glass of the frames, cracking it with sharp pings. It consumed the smiling faces of the children I thought I knew. I watched Marcus burn. I watched the lie of the busy executive melt away. I watched the lie of the devoted son turn to ash. I watched Naya burn. The spa trips, the fake business crises, the disdain for my old man smell. It all went up in smoke. I watched Darius burn, the gambling, the arrogance, the theft. The fire took it all. The heat hit my face. It felt good. It felt like waking up after a long, cold sleep. I wasn't just burning photos. I was burning the man I used to be. I was burning the doormat. I was burning the ATM. I was burning the lonely widower who sat by the phone waiting for crumbs of affection. That man died tonight. He died the moment he read that text message. I stood up as the fire roared, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. I saw my reflection in the dark window. I didn't see an old man. I didn't see a victim. I saw the architect. That was what they called me on the job sites in the 80s. The architect. Not because I had the degree yet, but because I could see the structure of a thing before it was built. I knew where the load-bearing walls were. I knew where the weak points were. I knew exactly where to place the dynamite to bring the whole thing down in a controlled demolition. I had built this family on a foundation of indulgence. That was a structural error. My error. And now I was correcting it. The fire popped and hissed. The faces were gone now. Just black flakes floating up the chimney into the winter night. I turned my back on the fireplace. I didn't need to watch it burn out. I knew it would leave nothing behind but dust. I walked to the closet by the front door. I pulled out my coat. Not the old moth-eaten wool coat I wore when they came over so I wouldn't look intimidating. I pulled out my cashmere trench coat, the one I bought in Milan 10 years ago when I closed the deal on the waterfront project. I put it on. It fit perfectly. I buttoned it up. I put on my leather gloves. I put on my fedora. I looked like a man who owned the block. Because I did. I wasn't going to wait for them to come back and find me sitting in my pajamas crying over a turkey. I was going to be ready. I checked my watch. It was 3:00 a.m. They would be landing in 6 hours. They would come here first. They always came here first when they needed something or when they wanted to twist the knife. They would come to gloat. They would come to bully me into selling the house. Let them come. I walked to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. Strong, black, the kind that keeps you alert on a night shift. I sat in the chair facing the front door. I crossed my legs. I folded my hands over my chest. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I visualized the plan. I visualized the look on Tiffany's face when the key didn't turn. I visualized Marcus's confusion when the security detail stopped him. I was the architect, and the blueprints for their destruction were flawless. Come home, children. Daddy is waiting. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 9 times. The deep, resonant chimes vibrated through the soles of my Italian leather shoes. I stood in the foyer of my own home, a space I had designed, framed, and paid for with blood and sweat. But this morning it didn't feel like a home. It felt like a stage, and the curtains were about to go up on the final act. I adjusted my gold cufflinks. They were heavy, solid 24-karat gold engraved with the Kingston family crest, a lion holding a compass. I hadn't worn them in 15 years. I hadn't worn this suit in 10. It was a charcoal gray 3-piece bespoke masterpiece cut by a tailor in Milan who used to make suits for kings. It fit a little looser now than it did then, but it still commanded respect. It was armor. Next to me stood Cohen. He looked tired but sharp, his eyes scanning a sheaf of legal documents like a general reviewing a battle plan. Behind us stood 4 men. They were not family. They were not friends. They were private security contractors from Titan Services. 6'4", built like retaining walls, wearing black suits that strained against their shoulders. They stood with their hands clasped in front of them, silent and immovable. We waited. Outside, the winter storm had cleared, leaving a blindingly white morning. The silence of the snow-covered street was shattered by the screech of tires. I looked through the side window. A convoy of 3 taxis pulled up to the curb. They hadn't arrived in the company SUVs or the luxury sedans I paid for. Those had likely already been flagged or towed. No, they arrived in yellow cabs, looking disheveled and furious. Tiffany was the first out. She slammed the cab door so hard I saw the driver flinch. She was wearing a floor-length white fur coat that probably cost more than the taxi driver made in a year. But she didn't look glamorous. Her makeup was smeared from the night before. Her hair was a tangled mess of blonde extensions. She marched up the walkway, her boots crunching violently in the snow, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated entitlement. Behind her came Marcus, my son. He looked gray. His eyes were bloodshot, probably from the alcohol and the panic of a declined credit card. He wasn't wearing a coat, just his expensive suit jacket shivering in the Chicago wind. Nia and Darius trailed behind, looking like frightened children hiding behind their bullies. They stormed the porch like an invading army. They didn't ring the doorbell. They didn't knock. Tiffany grabbed the handle and yanked, locked. She yanked again, harder, rattling the heavy oak door against the frame. "Open this door!" she shrieked. Her voice pierced through the wood, shrill and demanding. "I know you're in there, old man. Open it right now." I stood motionless on the other side. I watched the door handle jiggle violently. Marcus joined in. He started pounding on the wood with his fist. The sound echoed through the house, boom, boom, boom. Dad, Marcus yelled. His voice was hoarse. "Quit playing games. We are freezing out here. Open the damn door. I didn't move. I let them pound. I let them scream. I wanted them to exhaust their entitlement. I wanted them to feel the cold biting into their skin." Tiffany screamed again. "I swear to God, if you don't open this door, I'm calling the police. We know you're in there. Don't you dare play dead. We know you're just hiding because you messed up the bank accounts. Don't play dead." That was what my son had said. Don't play dead. As if my life, my death was just an inconvenience to their schedule. As if the only reason I wouldn't answer the door was out of spite or incompetence, never out of authority. I looked at Cohen. He nodded once. A subtle, grim signal. I looked at the lead security guard. He stepped forward, his hand hovering over the deadbolt. I took a deep breath. The air in the house was warm, smelling of the fresh coffee I had brewed but not drunk. The air outside was sub-zero. The pressure differential was about to equalize. "Open it," I said. The guard turned the lock. The click was loud, a mechanical snap that sounded like a bone breaking. He pulled the door open. The sudden rush of freezing air swirled into the foyer, carrying snowflakes and the smell of exhaust fumes. Marcus stumbled forward, his fist raised to hammer on the door again, hitting nothing but air. He caught himself stumbling onto the entryway rug. Tiffany pushed past him, her fur coat bristling with static electricity. Finally, she spat, not even looking up at first. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to have your card declined in front of—" Her voice died in her throat. She looked up. She didn't see an old man in a bathrobe holding a cup of tea. She didn't see a confused pensioner apologizing for a banking error. She saw me. She saw the charcoal gray suit. She saw the silk tie knotted with a perfect Windsor. She saw the gold cufflinks catching the morning light. She saw the posture of a man who had built skyscrapers from mud. And then she saw the wall of muscle behind me. 4 guards, stone-faced, arms crossed, and Cohen holding a stack of papers that looked like a death sentence. Tiffany froze. Her mouth hung open, her lipstick smeared at the corners. She took a half-step back, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Marcus straightened up, blinking rapidly. He looked from me to the guards, then back to me. His brain was trying to process the data, but the file was corrupted. This wasn't his father. This was a stranger wearing his father's face. Dad, Marcus whispered, What is this? Who are these people?" Nia and Darius huddled in the doorway, shivering, their eyes wide. They looked like deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. I didn't smile. I didn't offer them a coat. I didn't ask them if they had a nice flight. I clasped my hands behind my back and looked down at them from the top of the foyer steps. I felt 10 feet tall. "Welcome," I said. My voice was calm, deep, and devoid of any warmth. It echoed off the high ceilings. "Welcome to the extraordinary shareholders' meeting." Tiffany blinked, her confusion turning into a defensive snarl. "What are you talking about? Shareholders' meeting? Have you lost your mind? We are here to get you to sign the papers for the house sale. We need the cash released immediately to fix whatever mess you made with the accounts." She reached into her oversized designer bag and pulled out a crinkled document. She waved it at me like a weapon. "Sign it," she demanded, stepping forward. "Sign it so we can get out of this freezing hallway and go to a hotel. You can go to Sun Valley today for all I care. Just sign the damn paper." One of the guards stepped forward, blocking her path. He didn't touch her. He just occupied the space she wanted to be in. She slammed into his chest like a bird hitting a window. "Get out of my way!" she screeched, trying to push him. He didn't budge an inch. I stepped down one stair. "Put the paper away, Tiffany," I said. "There is no house to sell." What Marcus asked, his voice trembling. "What do you mean? Of course there is. We're standing in it. Dad, stop this. Why are you dressed like that? Why is Mr. Cohen here?" Cohen stepped forward. He adjusted his glasses. "Mr. King," Cohen said, addressing Marcus formally. "Please step back onto the rug. You are dripping melting snow onto the marble." Marcus looked down at his feet, then back at Cohen. "Cohen, what is going on? Tell my dad to send these goons away. We need to talk about the finances." "We are talking about the finances, Marcus," I said. "Specifically your finances, or rather the lack thereof." I signaled to Cohen. Cohen handed a thick envelope to Marcus. He handed another to Nia, and another to Darius. He didn't hand one to Tiffany. She wasn't blood, she was just collateral damage. Marcus opened the envelope. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped the papers. He pulled out a letter with the Kingston Holdings letterhead. We own this company," Marcus stammered, looking at the logo. "I work for MK Capital, but Kingston is the parent." "Read it, Marcus," I commanded. He read. His eyes scanned the page. His face went from gray to white to a sickly shade of green. "Termination," he choked out. "Gross misconduct, embezzlement. Dad, what is this? I'm the CEO. You can't— Who signed this?" He looked at the bottom of the page. He saw the signature. It was a signature he had seen on birthday cards and tuition checks his entire life. But this time it didn't say, "Love, Dad." It said, "Reginald King, chairman of the board. You," Marcus whispered, "you own Kingston." "I founded Kingston Holdings in 1978, Marcus the First said. "Before you were born. I built it with a slide rule and a shovel. MK Capital is a wholly owned subsidiary, and as of midnight last night, you are fired." "Fired!" Tiffany screamed. She grabbed Marcus's arm. "He can't fire you. He's just a senile old man, Marcus. Do something." "He can't do anything, Tiffany," I said, turning my gaze to her. "Because he is currently under investigation for stealing $200,000 of company funds to pay for your ski trip." "That's a lie," Tiffany yelled. "That was a business expense. Client development ski rentals for your sister are not client development," I said. Marcus looked up at me. His eyes were wet. "Dad, please. The house. The mortgage." "Read the next page," I said. He flipped the page. "Eviction notice. Immediate." "Dad, no." Marcus pleaded. We have nowhere to go. The locks. The locks were changed at 8:00 a.m., I said. Your key cards don't work. Your car has been repossessed. You are standing in the only warm place you have access to, and you are currently trespassing. Nia dropped her envelope. She fell to her knees on the rug, sobbing. My store, she wailed. My store is locked. There's a padlock on the door. I got a text from the manager. Dad, why are you doing this? Because you violated the contract. Nia, I said. Clause 14B, you disparaged the lender, you called me stingy, you wanted 40% of my home, now you have 100% of your debt, immediate repayment, $1.5 million, due today. I don't have it, she screamed. Then you are bankrupt, I said. Darius didn't even open his envelope. He just stared at me. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. The bravado from the live stream was gone. The Porsche, he whispered. Gone, I said. The penthouse sealed. The credit cards cut. But why? Darius asked, his voice cracking like a teenager's. It was just a joke, Pops. The text. It was just a joke. We didn't mean it. I looked at the three of them, my children, broken, crying, begging. For a second, the old Reggie wanted to step forward. The father wanted to hug them, to tell them it was just a lesson to fix it all. Then I looked at Tiffany. She wasn't crying. She was glaring at me with pure hate. This is illegal, she shouted. You can't just throw us out on the street. We have rights, squatters' rights, tenants' rights. I will sue you for every penny you have. Cohen stepped forward again. Actually, Mrs. King, Cohen said smoothly, the housing agreement Marcus signed